Let's start by having you say your name and title. So we just
Sure. I'm JJ Zaritsky. I'm a pediatric nephrologist at AI DuPont Hospital for Children / Nemours, rhymes with s'mores. And I'm the chief of pediatric nephrology.
All right. So I wanted to sort of ask you a crew of questions. The first of which is how this conference helps you.
Yeah. I think this, going to a conference, what's so exciting is hearing what's out there and the exchange of ideas. So, when we're walking in the hallway just back there, I'm starting answering phones. Well, what dose of medicine do you want to give this patient? You got to get locked in this world. Like, how am I going to make it through the day, deliver the care I need to? And you lose that bigger perspective. How are we going to change the field? And it's conferences like this that do that put people together. So you could see out in the hallway, a couple of people already grabbed me. So the connections I made at the conference already, I sat next to a sports medicine guy who, that's big in adult CKD, is doing some exercise training. Well, at AI DuPont, we have this huge exercise physiology thing. We have dialysis patients, but how do we put the two together? That's one example. Talking with the transplant guy here, say, hey, how do we work closer together? And then just hearing from Preyas about their transition unit, we've been sending a patient to them who needs an extra day of dialysis. And that would be perfect if I could send her for that extra day of dialysis to this transition unit. Wow, wouldn't that be great? She could transition not over a period of 1 month, but maybe over a period of 2 to 3 years. So that's the kind of excitement you get coming to a conference like this. There's a lot of ideas going back and forth. And you realize that, we always, that Delaware is a small state, blah, blah, blah. But patients they're getting that extra, in their own backyard, they get this type of care and interest. It's really amazing.
Cool. That's a good answer. Okay, and so clearly, theme of the day, patient involvement.
Yes.
Why is patient involvement important?
Yeah. I think we've come to recognize as physicians that the communication can't just be one way. I can't tell a patient what to do or try to train them and stuff without having them telling me what their questions are or what their engagement is. So this idea of patient engagement as far as improving outcomes is huge. And it kind of makes sense, is that there's two sides of the equation. You can't just put all your energy into one side of the equation and expect outcomes to get better without patient engagement. And I'm not an expert in the field, but patients that are better, it makes sense, patients that are better engaged are going to get better health care. And they're going to have better outcomes because they're engaged in their own health care. So that's the sort of the missing connection. And there's also this idea that, in some senses, medicine is, there's a little bit of a consumer aspect of it, that there's competition. I don't know, a happy patient is going to be more engaged. The final thing I'll say is that trust is such an important thing in medicine, that your patient trusts you and you trust the patient. And the way that comes together is through patient engagement. Excuse me.
How did you get involved in the first place?
For pediatric nephrology, that's part of it. So we do everything. We take care of acute problems, chronic kidney disease, general nephrology, and transplant. So because pediatrics is such a smaller field, and you saw the incidents that I presented, we have that opportunity. So I didn't have to pick that, I was just going to do stones. It's just part of the nature of the patients we take care of. And especially with the renal diseases we see patients who are born with kidney diseases that get progressively worse. So we're able to step them through the stages of CKD, as opposed to like an adult physician that might have a patient with CKD3 for the rest of their life. We typically see some degree of progression.
An even deeper question, what drives you?
Just watch, don't lean back, that light's making a shadow. Just lean forward, you're good. We're rolling.
Good. What drives you?
My car. No, I'm just kidding.
Such an NBC
You drive your
question.
car,
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I have to say that this idea of engaging with patients, engaging with parents, engaging with staff, that is a driving force for me. So I use this corny example that I can go to work tired and have a full clinic day and then go home with a lot of energy. Or at the end of the day, walking out of the building, I'm like energized. Why? Because of this interaction and this ability to provide care, I get a lot of energy out of it. So that's kind of what drives me as a physician.
Okay. What do you see as the most important issue for us to tackle as a group, patient and caregivers? Thoughts?
I guess the thing is this idea of how do we improve trust from the provider and the patient. And I think if that is the focus on building a relationship, building trust, that's naturally going to lead to better outcomes. So whether it's trust between provider and provider, trust between provider and patient, patient and family, that I think that's the framework that you have to, or at least the foundation that you can build upon. And that's a lot of energy needs to be spent on that.
This is a little redundant, but then what opportunities do you see for better care delivery?
Yeah, I think what I talked on is transition, is the idea that, that we know there's a problem, right? We know there's a problem transitioning transplant patients from pediatric to adult centers, but we don't have a lot of options. So that's something that needs to be studied in a formal way so that we can get some data out of it. We've been talking transition for 20 or 30 years, but what are the advances? And I think some of the things that's hard is just few number of patients. There's not a lot of patients to try to do that. But I think that's a huge thing. When I was putting together this talk, I'm like, oh my God, what a problem. And I've often said, hey, listen, Dr. Zaritsky, you provide the best pediatric care. Your group provides the best pediatric. Hey, pray us. And I really believe this group in Delaware, the care they provide is incredible. But if I can't successfully transition a patient over there, it doesn't matter how great our two groups are. It doesn't matter, right? If there's a big chasm between the two of us, the patient can never make it over there. So what's the point? What's the point? So I think that's a huge area that we can study and make improvements on.
And last big question, what would be the ideal situation?
I'm beginning to wonder if this idea that there's this idea that from 13 to 26, that's a different, although we'd have to change a lot in the healthcare system, a lot with insurance. I'm beginning to wonder if that's more of an ideal transition or break point. That why do we break point at 18 or 21? Let's either make the break point at age 26 or transition patients to a group of doctors that are able to take care of that group. I wonder if that's some of the answers that we could be out there, so that we don't set patients adrift when they're that most at risk, is 18 or 21 years old. So that we make that transition earlier. And I wonder if is that as a model that, and especially now that we have doctors who are med peds trained, or even re-engaging family doctors, to say that age group, let's treat them, let's make that another category for care.
That was freaking perfect.
All right.
That was awesome.
See who's calling me.